Hello everybody, this is ManuS and welcome back to the Eternal set review for the new set Defiance with the last part of the fire cards. Today we're going to talk about the remaining fire cards and then move on to the time cards tomorrow. So let's get started. Okay, so first off we have Shingain Firebrand, another new Oni, the 4-cost 4/3 with Pledge. And on Renown you deal damage to an enemy equal to the cost of that spell or weapon. Yeah, the problem is the 4/3 body for 4 is pretty underwhelming, especially for a rare that's more like 3-cost stats. I found Pledge to be pretty marginal of value, so it's kind of free on the card. And then the Renown is just not that impressive. The card would have to be much better without the Renown to actually be worth considering for Constructed. In Limited, I'm sure this is going to be a fairly strong card, so it's probably aimed a bit more at that, I don't know. But yeah, in Constructed, this is not a card, which is unfortunate, because if we had enough good Onis, we could try and look into some Oni tribal stuff. Next we have Siegebreaker. This card is really powerful. I'm pretty impressed by like how much is going on here. First off, 4-cost 6/5 Overwhelm is great. That's like Sandstorm Titan level stats. And then we even get like a Sandstorm Titan level ability. We kill an enemy relic, which can make this an amazing 2-for-1. That also generates a lot of tempo, depending on how much the relic cost. And then the worst that happens is if they kill it, they draw a relic of their choice from their deck. Given the count of relics that people have these days, it means it will usually often be the same relic that you destroyed, and then they still have to replay the relic, so you still keep the tempo that you generated. So it's basically as if Siegebreaker would be a 6/5 for 4 that delayed kind of bounces the relic almost. Sure, some decks will have multiple relics and might get a better relic than you destroyed, but even that is not that terrible, because in a deck that wants to play something like Siegebreaker, that wouldn't matter that much. And yeah, you still get the tempo, and they still need to first find a way to deal with Siegebreaker, and 6/5 Overwhelm for 4 is nothing to sneeze at. Pretty powerful, and in Limited it only gets better probably, because a 4-cost 6/5 is a monster in Limited. Then we have Spitfire, pay 4 to deal 1 damage to an enemy. That's a pretty horrible relic in any format really. In Limited it might be fine if you need relic synergies and as like a filler, but even there the rate is pretty miserable. Like you spend 8 power to deal the first damage, that's awful. Next we have Surveiller, another 4-cost 5/2 pledge guy. Marginal Limited card, still pretty bad in Limited. 4-cost 5/2s are pretty bad. Pledge is a marginal upside, and yeah, it's a Sentinel, so that's a potentially relevant tribe in Limited, but yeah, not a good card. Not something that I want to put in my Limited deck, I think. Next we have Ashen Snake Pit. When you play your first spell in a turn, play a 3/1 Flamefang with Reckless, exhausted. So the fact that they are exhausted and can't even like defend you or block after you spend 5 power on a relic that doesn't do anything else, yeah, that card is really bad. And even in Limited, it's probably really bad, because by the time you have these Flamefangs and they can attack, and they actually have to attack because they're reckless, they're just gonna be eaten up by a bigger blocker. Card is just like, and you only can make 1 per turn either, so yeah, this card is terrible. What else can I say? Next we have Horde Leader, a 5-cost 3/3. That's already a pretty bad start, honestly. Like, 3-cost 3/3s are only okay. When he attacks, your other attacking units get +1 attack this turn. So that makes him a bit better, but he doesn't buff himself even, so he's still a 3/3. So the opponent will just eat him on the first attack. And on Renown you get a Barbarian Camp, which is fine. But even for Limited, his effect and stat and ratio and stuff are pretty weak. So I think in Limited he's at best a filler, and in Constructed he's obviously unplayable. Next we have Shingain Forge, another overcosted underpowered relic. When you play a unit, you create and draw a heavy axe. So yeah, I guess you can turn your Grenadine factory into a heavy axe factory at the same time, but that doesn't really get you anywhere. This card seems really unplayable in both formats. Another overcost that do nothing relic that costs you your entire turn without having any effect on the board or the rest of the game whatsoever until the turn after the earliest. And then how much are like heavy axes gonna do for you? Next we have the Phoenix Hammer that we know from the previous. Card's kinda cool, but also to like pulled back. 6 cost, 4/2 is pretty weak for a 6 cost weapon. I think it could have easily cost like 5. And then it would have become interesting. When you play your third spell in a turn, draw a Phoenix Hammer from your void. 3 spells is a lot in a game like Eternal, given that only actual spells count as spells, not units or anything. And yeah, then you have Amplify to make it bigger, but that's like a super late game thing. And the super late game, there are so many more powerful, better things that you can be doing than this that also cost you a lot less work to make happen. And with 2 armor, this is very fragile, so it's usually a 1 use and done kind of thing. And then how often can you really muster 3 spells to get it back? Next we have Shingain Captain. That's actually a pretty good one, possibly even the best or tied for the best of these 6 drops, and the most constructed playable probably. The green one is also pretty good with Aegis, but we'll get to that later. So first of all, charge is one of the best keywords in the game. Just very powerful in this like kind of removal, trade, slugfest kind of thing that this game often is. Then having immediate impact in a proactive deck from charge is really good. And then it also has more pseudo charge with its ability, buffing all your existing units, giving you often like 7+ stats, like 7/7+ stats in immediate impact for 6 power. The fact that it's monocolor makes it a bit vulnerable to the most prevalent fast removal or bigger things in Annihilate, but that's not that big of a deal. The fact that it's an Oni might come in handy, but is probably irrelevant. So yeah, this card's actually kind of interesting for the style of deck that I gave Moosh for ETS Worlds, the Wind Chest midrange with Zuberi, inspired by like Zuno's deck. The deck probably wouldn't want this because it already has Rizan, and in multi-faction stuff you usually have better 6 drops, but just like the same style of deck might be interested in something like this. So yeah, the card is something to at least keep in mind. And in limited, this is obviously a powerhouse. Then we have Sunscorched Elemental, 6 cost, 6/2 Reckless. That is pretty bad. And on Renown you get 2 more 3/1 Flamefangs with Reckless. But yeah, even in limited, this seems pretty bad for a 6 drop. And like it's quite aggressive, but a 6 drop like that requires you to still have something to trigger Renown by the time this matters, and has Reckless. Does not seem like something that you want to put in your aggressive deck, and in a non-aggressive deck this is really bad, so yeah, not a good card in either format really, I think. Then we have Forgeborn, another card we know from the previews. That's a pretty good pledge card. 7 cost, 7/7 Overwhelm that you can turn into a nice way to break a stall and just finish the opponent, while also using it for power in your opening hand. Is pretty great. Like, this is a really good limited top end card, I would say, but not a constructed card. Next we have Xo of the Endless Horde. Initially I found the card so-so, but the more I like thought about the card and talked about the card with others and stuff, the card actually is like really good and gonna be one of the nice new top end cards for fire based decks, especially now that Caria has been nerfed. First of all, the fact that it's 2 cards in one in a world with strategizers and a lot of merchants and smugglers is really nice, and even if you don't run those, you still basically run a 2 power cantrip with like a 7 cost 6/6 flyer attached. And the ultimate is a pretty nice way to put away a game in the late game. You can just spend like 6 to 8 power on this, kill a thing or two, and draw 3 to 4 cards, and that should put away a lot of games. It's a bit easier to answer because it's not multi-faction, but that is not that big of a deal with a unit that doesn't have charge and that late in the game. Your opponent will mostly have stuff like Slay, Vanquish, and so on anyway. And the fact that it has flying means decks that have to rely on AV Graft because they don't have cards like Slay and Annihilate will not be able to kill it with some of their removal, which is also actually pretty good. So that's also something to keep in mind. Yeah, all in all, pretty nice card. And last but not least, we have Magmatic Sentinel. Pretty powerful top end if your deck wants an 8-drop in limited. This is a pretty nice one. 7/5 is not the greatest stats, but dealing 5 damage to an enemy unit is so valuable and powerful that getting a solid body together with this all-in-one card is pretty strong. One of the better 8-drops in limited, I think. So yeah, that concludes the review of the fire cards with part 3. And yeah, tomorrow I'll be starting on time and see if I can manage the full justice parts before I leave for like Christmas to visit family and stuff, and then we'll continue when I'm back. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments what you think. We already had a lot of discussion so far, so that's great. Keep it up, ask questions, let me know what you think, make suggestions. Always excited for like interaction with the viewers and hearing your guys' opinions. Alright, if you enjoyed this, please hit the like button, hit the skull to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification icon to not miss out on future content. You can also find me on social media over here, Twitter, Facebook, live streaming on Twitch. You can also find everything as link in the description if you find that easier. And if you want to support this content, I would really appreciate it if you consider whitelisting eternaltitans.com and YouTube to support the free content with ads. It really helps us a lot and doesn't cost you anything other than a bit of your time at worst. Alright, that's it again for today. I'm your host Manuez. This was the Eternal set review for Defiance with the fire cards, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.